Okay, this morning we are going to be talking about slope-intercept form and how we can find slope-intercept form when we're not given our slope and our y-intercept. So we're going to have to do a little math, algebra, before we can actually get our equation. So just a really quick review at the top of your page. You should see this box, the set of 3 boxes at the top. Just a reminder, your m value is always your slope. Remember our slope, your y is always on the top, your x is always on the bottom. And also remember we like fractions, fractions are fine, and proper fractions are fine. We haven't gotten to the point in our life yet where we're going to talk about turning that into a decimal. Remember, that's only going to be in real world situations like word problems. Your b is your y-intercept, so that's where your graph is going to cross your y-axis. There might be certain situations where you do turn this into a decimal, but more times than not, you don't want that to be a decimal either. But when we start graphing things, it's hard to graph that as a fraction, so you do end up turning it into a decimal. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Remember, your slope-intercept form is always y equals mx plus b. We talked earlier in the week about when we're talking about y equals mx plus b, your m is your slope, your b is your y-intercept, and then your y and your x are pretty much just like placeholders. Today we're going to go a little more in depth on what we could do with y and x if we had to. And then the last thing we talked about last week and early of this week, and then you just practiced this, was your slope formula. Remember slope formula? Your slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You're still getting confused about what's y1, y2, x2, x1. Label them, please. So sometimes you might not be given your b value or your y-intercept. And in order to do that, you can use the slope and one point that you know is going to be on the given line that you're trying to create the equation for to get your equation. So I'm giving you an example on the right, and then I'm giving you steps on the left. So it says in our example, you're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form that passes through the point 3, negative 4, and it has a slope of 2/3. So first thing you're going to do, step 1, and make sure you're writing these notes down. If I check your notebook, which I'm going to do at the end of this week, beginning of next week, this should be filled in. You're going to fill in the information that you do know. So we know we're using slope-intercept form, and you know the slope. So I'm going to start with y equals. I know my slope is 2/3, so instead of y equals m, I'm going to put 2/3. Still my x, and then the b is what I'm looking for, or my y-intercept. Second thing you can do, if you know that the point 3, negative 4 is on this line that we're creating our equation for, you can replace the x and the y with the ordered paired numbers. So replace x and y with ordered pair. Some of you are like, what does that mean? Well, you know in an ordered pair, the first number is your x value and your second number is your y value. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my equation, and wherever I see the y, I'm replacing it with negative 4 because my ordered pair has a negative 4 in the y place. Keeping the slope, replacing x with 3 because the x is a 3 in the ordered pair, still leaving plus b. Notice that I put parentheses around the 3 to remind myself that I'm multiplying 2/3 in 3. And now all I'm doing is trying to figure out what my b value is because I've replaced everything. So all I have to do now is solve. So my third step is going to solve for b. And you're going to do that how we've been solving for things for the last several weeks. First step is always combine like terms if possible. I'm going to multiply 2/3 and 3. Use your calculator, use your brain, whatever you need to do. I know that 2/3 times 3 is going to give me 2. So I'm going to have negative 4 equals 2 plus b. I'm going to move 2 to the other side of my equation, and I'm going to end up with negative 6. So now I know that my b value is -6. From here, your last step is you're going to write your equation in slope-intercept form. So all I have to do is take that number that I just figured out, which was -6, and I'm going to go back to the original equation I started writing. All I'm doing is filling in b with -6. So when I rewrite my equation, I'm going to have y equals 2/3 x, and then instead of b, I'm putting -6. So I was able to replace my x and my y with an ordered pair that I know is on the line that I'm trying to create the equation for, solve for b, and then write my equation in slope-intercept form. Let's go down to the bottom, and let's do another one. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write in the information that I do know. The information I know to start with is that my slope is 1/2. So I'm going to say y equals 1/2 x plus b. From here, I have a 6 and a 1. In the y spot, I have a 1. Still got my slope. In my x spot, I have a 6. So I'm going to put 6 where x is. Remember, you're multiplying those two. And then plus b. As I go to solve, I'm going to start by multiplying. I know that 1/2 times 6 is 3. So I'm going to have 1 equals 3 plus b. Move 3 to your other side. My b value is going to be -2. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to put it back in my original equation and replace it for b. So my answer should be y equals 1/2 x minus 2. And I'm done. I want you to take the next few minutes, and I want you to try and do 2 and 3 without me. So pause your video, do 2, do 3, unpause your video, and check my answers with your answers. Okay, you should be done with the front of your notes at this point. Hopefully you went back through and showed your work. If you notice on the second example, I plugged in the -6 for x, the 4 for y, and then I solved and I got that my y-intercept was 8. Be paying attention to your negatives. That's always important. When I rewrote my equation, I should have y equals 2/3 x plus 8. On number 3, I replaced my x with 8, my y with -7. I did my math, and I ended up with my b value being -9. Again, be paying attention to your negative numbers. My final equation was y equals 1/4 x minus 9. At this point in time, this video is now over. You should have gotten an assignment from Miss N. You're doing the front of that assignment. I believe it's 1 through 9. You have to show your work on all of them. When you're done with 1 through 9, you'll keep your piece of paper, you'll flip your notes over to the back, and you're going to watch the second video about the second part of this.